Finally, this project is almost over. Looking over my files for this project indicates I started on or about January 5th, and now it is June 26th as I record this narration. I finished the battery stand May 31st as you see it here, and then started on the cover, finishing it June 9th. What follows is the design and casting of the cover. And now it is time to make the cover. Here is the 3D representation of the cover using Autodesk Inventor. This one will be cast using my lightweight concrete. And now I will spin it around to look at the bottom side showing a concave inset. The border walls is what retains it on the tower, and the hollow portion is needed for clearance to the batteries. Now flipping it around back to the top, and again using Inventor, we will see what the form looks like. First into view is the bottom of the form, which is actually the top of the cover. Now in comes the two short walls, which will be screwed into the base. Next are the long walls, which will also be screwed into the base. At this point of assembly, I will fill it up to the top of the walls with the lightweight concrete. Next, I will install the last two parts of the form, which forms the walls and the hollow portion. And of course, the last part will be capping it off with lightweight concrete. Now, let's get started. I'm almost to the end of this project. There's my casted in place battery stand, and of course I've got the two batteries installed over here in the middle. If you're wondering what this is, that's a fuse protecting the system, wiring going through the PVC that I casted in place up underneath the panelings. So now let's take a look inside for the last step of this project, which is going to be making the cover. Coming over to the workbench, here we've got all the pieces cut out for the cover mold, which you've already seen. So there's the four sides, the bottom, a little insert, and then over there is the other piece of the form. So next step, we're going to get this form assembled. Here's the base of my form, which is actually going to be the top. I actually coated this with fiberglass to help it break free of the form. I've got everything numbered so that they go together properly. These I have coated with boxing tape again to help release the form. And this is number 4. And I've got it labeled underneath number 4, so these go together. Had to be a little careful screwing all these together because it's only going into plywood. You don't want to strip out the screws. So there's the main form. On top of the main form is going to be this piece. So, as I've outlined, we're going to fill this up with concrete, and this goes down over the top. I'm going to have to drill some holes and screw this down in a few places yet to be done. This goes down over the top, and then this piece goes in like that. We need this piece in here for clearance for the top of the batteries, and this in here forms the ledge or edge that's actually going to hold the form in place on, or hold the lid in place on the battery housing. So this is what we're doing here. We're going to have to get this all bolted up, ready to go, and then we should be ready to pour some concrete. I think I'm all ready to go to cast the top for the battery stand. Here we've got our fiberglass fibers sitting right here, a few tools, the main form, the top of the forms. Over here in buckets we've got some cement and sand. Over here is our perlite. This is going to be a lightweight mixture. a little bit of air entrainment, and this should reduce some of the water required. And for this one, we're going to use a little bit of colorant. So we'll make this somewhat of a reddish color. So here we go. We've got my mixing bucket down here on the floor. And now it's time to get started. I don't recall if I mentioned, but the bottom of my base form I actually coated with a fiberglass resin, a polyester resin, to hopefully make it come off nice and easy. It's fully sealed, nice smooth surface. Also coated, or basically painted onto it, some used motor oil. And the sides and ends, they are sealed with boxing tape, which should make this really easy to come apart. So now let's get into mixing up the concrete. Going to have the exhaust fan going. As the cement dust and the perlite is going to get a little bit of a cloud. Need the fan at the moment. I'm going to switch mixers. This will be better for use in the 5-gallon bucket than my little one. Need to go wash this off. I'll end up having to turn that fan back on once the perlite is ready. See if we can get a better look at what's going on in the bucket. It's a very soupy mix. But that'll all change once the perlite starts going in. That was the calculated amount of water I wanted to use. We can see we have a significant amount left over. I want to use as little as possible, especially with the perlite. If we get too wet, then it will segregate and the perlite floats to the surface. Let's get this up on the bench. Trying to do this so you can get a good view of what's going on with the mix. One thing that's important is not to overmix the perlite, because you can end up breaking down the little volcanic bubbles and increase the density where it's actually supposed to be decreasing the density. Let's see inside the bucket here. So make sure I've got everything incorporated into the mix. Scrape on the bottom of the bucket and the sides. And looking at this, I think I could actually use a little bit less water. So we're done mixing. See, it flows pretty well. Let's see what the vibrator does to it. Oh, I need to get it adjusted. It's going way too fast. See if we can see inside the bucket. You see what a little bit of vibration does to it. It makes it flow right out. So I could have gone with significantly less water in this mix. Let's get adjusted, and I'm going to need a bucket of water to clean my tools. I've learned from my past videos, don't stand in front of the camera, which usually gave you a good look at my back. A little crowded over here in this corner. We'll get you set up. I think fine. I'm also going to want to avoid getting any bubbles in the bottom, and we need to use the vibrator as little as possible, which again will segregate and allow the perlite to float to the surface. So I'm going to start with a small layer with vibration to get it This just might be a nice color. I'm going to use a lot of vibration on this first layer. I can also see perlite coming from the top, but I'll try to swirl that back in. This will be the first time that I've done something like this with a first small layer. Other times I've had significant pockets of error. There's one big bubble that came up from the bottom. There was another one that just popped. clears that first layer. I'm doing this to break up the perlite that has flown up to the surface, which could cause a weak layer. I don't think this will cause any voids to show up at the surface. And again, I'm avoiding using the vibration to settle this out. We'll use as little as possible only once we get this section pretty much filled in. And I think it's full. Is covering up the view. Each one of these bubbles that comes up brings a little bit of that perlite with it, because the perlite really wants to sit on top of this. First stage is done. Used motor oil is some nasty stuff. You really want to avoid contact with your skin. There are other release agents available. I don't have any at the moment. And I've got this marked, letter A here. And on this side is the other letter A. I'm a little scared at the moment because this is going way too smooth. Got to be something that's going to go wrong really bad. These two top boards were not sealed in any way. Just sanded, voids filled in, and oiled. So which means the really bad thing that's going to happen is I won't be able to break them out of the form. They never proclaimed to be a concrete master. This is side labeled number 1 here, labeled number 1 here. I've got dowel pins to locate it. Very simple. On it goes. Now, something I learned from the pour of the battery housing is this is going to want to float. So we staple it down. Now the worst thing that's going to happen here, let's get this adjusted a little bit away from the bucket, still in the camera, is that I don't have enough to fill up this area, but it kind of looks okay. I have my calculations set, so there should be some left over. I'm going to rely on the vibration, or what little vibration I add to it, to get the mixture up underneath these supports. Now let's see what happens. Unfortunately, I can't see under there. I'm going to shove some under there till it comes out to the other side. That's as far as I'm going for now. It's done, it's casted, it's in place. We're going to wait for this to set up. You can see we have a lot of surface water here. Actually, that is almost nothing but surface water. And I have practically nothing left over. So we're going to add a little bit there. We're going to wait for this to set up. I'm going to have to monitor the clock. It's almost 4 o'clock now. Wait for it to set up before I try to smooth out that surface. But we really need to adjust the safety quantity over mixture, because that, what we see here, is practically all that's left over. Now what I'm going to do with that, what little is left over, is I'm going to get that into a container and put it in the refrigerator to cool it off, to prevent it from setting, so that if I need anything to fill in, I'll have something left over. We'll revisit this in 30 minutes and see what it looks like. "30 minutes later, and it looks like most of the water has gone from the top, but let's get repositioned to get a better look. Carefully probing the surface here, and it's still pretty wet. If we can see this in the camera, the surface is still very pliable, and there's a lot of moisture on top. It's pretty much the same all the way around. So at this point, that was 30 minutes. We're going to wait another 30 minutes. It's now been 1 hour. Let's take a look at this stuff that's bled out. Much firmer than it was before. It's springing back pretty good. No visible water on the surface, but if I move it around a little bit, you can see it gets pretty wet on top. So we're going to wait another 30 minutes. We're now at 1.5 hours. And I think I'm ready to strike this off. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to need to find something to put my scraps in. I'm going to call this done. It's a little bit below the form, which is not critical at all. So that's it. We're going to let that sit for the rest of the evening. When it's nice and solid, then we will wrap this top with plastic to let it cure before we bust it out of the mold. Alright, it's Thursday. I poured it Sunday. Now it's Thursday and it's time to get a look and see if I can break open this form. The first thing I'm going to do is take a look at this is the leftovers. And you see I didn't have a whole lot left over. I just dumped it in here, a little bit of vibration. Let's see what it looks like. And it came out pretty clean. Surfaces are nice and smooth. We can get a close-up here of it. I'm assuming the camera's going to focus on it. You can see the stamping that's inside the little plastic, how it came out. So, let's get started in opening this up. Here's the truth. It's a little bit fragile yet, so we're going to wrap this thing back up in the plastic and let it sit for a few more days. Well, it's been a couple of more days in the bag, and we're going to see if we can coax it out of the form. I thought about trying something different. Instead of pushing this up, I'm going to try to push the part down. So we'll space it up on both ends. So you can see these ends moving, but I can't see the middle moving. We don't want to put a lot of stress on this. I'm avoiding having to cut this off in case I want to cast another one. Seems to be stuck pretty good in the middle, don't know why. And we cracked a piece off here at the bottom. That's not good news.
Woohoo!
It's the middle that's holding it in. We're going to have to cut the middle out. See, this is all loose now. We have to get this off. And we'll work on getting the metal section of this out. I've got a couple of staples in here that I don't want to use my vibrator to cut through. I should have done to this like I did on the main form and cut a couple of slots down here to aid in getting this out, but we'll just have to work this through. See the depth of the cut. Might have to go out and get my bigger pry bars. I think I'll do that. I'm going to run out and get my pry bar.
Woohoo!
Here we go. That's it. And for the unveiling, as I wipe off the caulking, we get a close-up. take this outside here to get that cleaned up. The caulking I used this time was a clear silicone, and it is much more difficult to come off than the white stuff, so we're not going to be using that again. It's a deeper red than I was figuring it to be. But there it is. Now it's time to go put it on the tower and see if it fits. And this brings us to the conclusion of another Diggy-Doos project. My battery enclosure looks pretty good. Cover fits good. Cover is made out of lightweight concrete. Had it been normal concrete, it would have weighed in at about 25 pounds. Once the water all dissipates, it should weigh in at about 12 pounds, so it's about half the weight. See you next time. Be sure to subscribe to follow this project and hit that notification bell to be informed of future updates.